All right, everyone, we are here finally without technical difficulties that are driving me up the wall. I had a point. Where was I going to go? Oh, so here I was last month thinking, all right, cool, I'm all set to go back to a regular recording schedule. And then the week where we were supposed to do the Pokemon Warpath podcast, I had a hatchback shut on my head, tore my scalp open. I had to have a couple of staples put in there, one of which ended up sitting on a nerve. So my head was just in constant agony for like a week, and it was kind of a moment of like, yeah, I'm not gonna do anything. So my creativity kind of died for a little while there, but I'm back. I'm okay. There's gonna be very minimal scarring. I think it's easily coverable by my hair. So all that being said, we have got a couple of reviews to get through. Fanfiction seems to be down for the time being. And I only just learned about that because of a review that was put up on Archive of Our Own. But we'll get to that in a minute. For now, we do have from Joe Clone on fanfiction.net, we have his comments of, man, this was a depressing one. Good things like Ingenium and Inertia's conversation made me happy, but the happiness was very sparse. Kai's reason for hating the press couldn't be more relatable. I hate yellow journalism, and Kurai's story is definitely a prime example. That's a term you don't hear very often anymore, yellow journalism. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's just because like so much of journalism today is just yellow journalism. Yeah. That's just become the norm, which is really sad. Also, Aerie being the one he talks to about it first really tells how much he trusts her. Has he even told Mina yet? Yeah, he has. Like, how do I put this? Like, not every conversation that Mina and Kurai have is obviously going to be transcribed in the story. Not even all, like, the really, really important ones are there. But there's stuff that's important to them that has been covered between the two of them that hasn't come up in the story. And, like, how do I put this? Like, just because you haven't seen the two of them talking about it doesn't mean it hasn't been discussed. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Mina's known for a while why Kurai hates the media so much. Aerie now finding out about it is a tool of the narrative, I suppose you could say. Because like, you know, for you guys, it's like, oh great, he hates the media again. What's the story this time? Aerie provides an audience for him to explain that in a way that I can convey it to you guys, without it seeming like it's out of left field. Let's see. I don't like dwelling on the sad parts, but the family that lost their home, and I don't know where the rest of the family were, tugged on my heart super tightly. I couldn't handle it. Yeah, clarification purposes, the rest of the family is dead. It's just the two kids now. Let's see. And the dragon classmate of Kurai's youth found dead. Kai put it best, so messed up. Yep. It's, how do I put, like, so I haven't had an experience like that. I did recently have an old friend of mine from the school that I went to in Australia. He told me about one of our classmates that had passed away. And this was a guy who, like, you know, like I didn't hate him by any stretch of the imagination. He was a nice guy. We hung out a couple times. Like, I wouldn't exactly call us friends, but, you know, we could hang out in the same social circle and have a good time. And I just remember it really taking me aback. And I had this planned out, you know, before hearing about that news, because this was a little while ago. But I think going back and like working through to edit this part, it just kind of hit me in a new way. I think. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Alrighty. Mina and Tenya's conversation was something that I was glad to see come to this, with mutual understanding and willingness to go forward. I just know they'll keep it in mind when Tensei eventually has to do the punishment on the pair. That was a fun conversation. Like, it was, how do I put, like, the things between Ida and Kurai have pretty much cleared up by this point. Like, they're both okay with the fact that they're never going to be, like, quite where they were before. But they've made their peace with that, and you know, they are friends again. They have been for a while, but I'm sure you've experienced this where like you kind of feel the wounds for your friend, kind of thing, even if they've moved past it. It's for some reason like it's harder as the bystander to let it go. Does that make sense?
Honestly, I'm trying to figure out what we're talking about.
The
Sorry.
you don't remember Kurai and Ida had a falling out at the toward the beginning of the...
Yes, I know we're talking about that, but I'm trying to figure out what you're relating it to.
I'm just talking about, like, in general, like, if someone wrongs a friend of yours, and even if your friend moves past it, sometimes it's hard for you as the friend to let go of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to figure out where you're applying this.
Oh, this is when Mina and Tenya are having their conversation at the end of last chapter, like where Ida's like, "Hey, we can't keep operating like this," and Mina's like, "Yeah, I know that," and because remember they were butting heads when they were out in the field.
Yes, I know.
And then they finally come to their understanding.
Uh-huh.
So what I'm talking about is, like, on Mina's end, I feel like it's been where she's kind of been holding on to this resentment. Maybe not even, like, outwardly, or maybe she wasn't even aware of it, but I definitely think that informed some of the friction that was present during this.
Okay.
Even if she hadn't, like, especially if she hadn't dealt with it, she probably didn't even realize that she was carrying it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I thought I'm really bad about just assuming that people can see what's in my head when they read my stuff.
Yeah, that was like 5 different jumps, and I was trying to figure out how you were relating it to what we were talking about. So It makes sense now that you break it down. But...
Sorry. I need to get better at that. Let's see. The closing comment from Joe Clone is, "Hope Kai holds himself together long enough to get back home. Everyone needs to rest. I'll see you next chapter." Yeah, everybody does need a rest. I would agree that everybody does need a rest.
Yeah.
Nothing. They'll see in this coming chapter. Anyways, so this is the review that let me know that there was something happening with fanfiction.net, and I was really confused by this because I had been keeping track of stuff through my phone mostly. The only time I really get on fanfiction.net through the computer is to put up a new chapter.
Yeah.
Well, the website's not working on desktop. Yeah. Apparently it's working in some countries, but it's not working in the US right now for some reason. And it's like been that way for like 3 days now, which is kind of a long time for them to be down.
Surprising.
Yeah. So this next review comes from Silly Kira, but they reached out to us through Archive of Our Own. Do you want to read through this one? Okay.
Yeah.
Do you need me to make the font bigger?
No, it's fine. Silly Kita from Fanfiction coming in on
Archive of
Our Own since fanfiction seems to be down for the time being. I panicked for a minute thinking that I wasn't going to be able to catch up on this story, but fortunately you are also evidently on this site. Thank goodness. On to the actual review. That's very kind. Man, you really sold Mina's mental exhaustion in this one, and all it took was one little line, the one about her not even wanting to go to talk to Kurai, to convince me. Like, wow. I can't even imagine how it would actually feel to be that exhausted. And Ida being Ida on top of that, though, in all honesty, the poor guy really is trying in that second scene. And I can see why she acts the way she does in these chapters.
Yeah. Like, so I'm an extrovert myself. I get my energy from being around people. But there have been a couple of times in my life now where I have just been that tired to where I'm just like, oh God, is this what introverts feel like at the end of the day? Like after they've been to a party or something? Like I just don't want to talk to anybody. Like I want to sit in my bed, throw a blanket on myself, and just maybe bury my head in my pillows and not talk to anybody for the next week.
That sounds really nice.
As the introvert in this situation, what's your opinion?
No, absolutely. I mean, I did a lot of peopling today, so it's a mood.
Oh man. Yeah, like again, so like going back, like going through this chapter and fine tuning it, like since I originally wrote this chapter, and since then had my experience in traveling to Florida, where I just didn't sleep for 2 days essentially, and I had a much better appreciation for like how being that tired can actually be.
You're like having all of these random experiences that are making you sympathize with your characters.
Writers, we suffer for our art.
Dork. But while we're on the subject of these two, holy crap, you gobsmacked me with their character development, both as individuals and as coworkers and classmates.
There's another one I haven't heard in a hot minute.
Gobsmacked.
Gobsmacked.
Yeah.
When was the last time I heard gobsmacked?
I feel like I actually heard it this week. Mina's journey has been a pleasure to watch unfold throughout the story, but I'm seriously happy to see the vroom vroom follow the rules Ida getting some love again. I love my Ida. Like, he's
vroom vroom follow the rules. I love that description of Ida.
Seriously, one of my favorite characters.
I had to so assuming you've seen the
Abridged.
the Team 4 Stars My Hero Academia in 5 minutes. I had to go back, like, I just busted laughing, and I had, like, before I stopped laughing, the video had gone, like, halfway through, so I had to rewind to that, caught it again, and just killed myself laughing a second time.
Oh, yeah.
And I had to just make myself shut up so I could get through the rest of the video.
No, that's absolutely one of the best lines in that video.
Oh my god,
sure.
yeah, it's like, that
follow the rules.
That is Ida's character!
Yeah, that's him. I adore him. You're a little bit like him, and so that I think that's also why I love him.
I don't know how to take that.
Don't get me wrong, his reaching out to Deku during the Vigilante arc was a stupendous moment in the original canon, but this was a really big step for him, and it's nice to see this kind of development during something that is almost to do with the main plot.
Almost nothing to do with
almost nothing. Sorry.
Yeah. Quick comments on that moment where he reaches out to Deku in the Vigilante arc. Oh my goodness, that was such a good scene. That was such a good scene. And one of my favorite things is the first time I saw that scene was we were at a friend of ours' church. Oh, yeah. They had a projector, so we got that. Like, we didn't plan it out this way. Like, just Deku versus Class A was the episode that happened to come out that week. Yep. And they was like, "Hey, do you guys want to hook up the projector and watch My Hero Academia?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely." So we got that episode on a projector screen. It was so good.
Oh yeah, we were screaming.
Oh yeah. Oh, it was such a good episode. Like, oh man.
I like that Mina's words have an impact on Ida that actually resonate all the way down to his core. Something that I doubt we would ever see between this pair in the original story. I have to wonder or, ask, is this some of Kurai's influence on Mina being made manifest? We've seen a lot of how she's helped him and how that's changed his conduct throughout Your Hero Academia, but not quite as much the other way around, unless I'm missing or forgetting some things.
I think, honestly, yeah, how do I put this? Like, I've tried to do the show don't tell bit with how Mina's changed throughout this. Because she's definitely a better student in this, and I would say she's more driven in this version. Like, I'm not saying that she's not driven in the original canon, because the whole thing happened with Gigantomachia.
Yeah.
That being said, because she has a much more present tie to her ambition for doing better, like, because Kurai's there with her constantly pushing her to be better, as opposed to this thing that's just kind of faded into the background of her mind.
Yeah.
It has affected her drive and her focus.
And I think typically in the original canon, those two wouldn't have hung out that much to begin with, just because their personalities are so different. But because they have this proximity, because they're both close to the same person.
Yes.
They've gotten to know each other a little more than they did in the original canon, and so she can actually speak freely with him, whereas
she can speak to Tenya Ida instead of speaking to the class representative.
Yeah,
I feel like is how that is. But yeah, Mina's definitely been affected by Kurai's presence in her life. This would certainly be one of those cases and how that happened.
Seeing Kurai getting to interact with Ingenium was nice to see, and interesting to look at what Kai's life might be like going forward. He's always respected Tensei Ida, and I think he doesn't quite see or understand just how much that respect is growing to be mutual. It obviously wouldn't be the same, but for every hero he comes across, but it seems like we might be seeing more and more older heroes starting to actively look to him as a new champion. Up until now, it's mostly been the media hyping him up, but now that his work is on full display for a lot of heroes to witness personally, I think we're going to start seeing an interesting shift in the hero's geopolitical dynamics, especially with the Guardian hero already having earned Endeavor's respect. Whether or not Kurai likes where this is likely to go, it should be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I do remember that being one of the reasons why, like, not the main reason, it was not quite an afterthought, but like kind of one of the background themes for this was like, I wanted to put Kai to work alongside and in front of other heroes that he would have looked up to originally. And like to come into their workspace, like not as someone who's just tagging along, but as someone who, like, he's on the scene, he knows what it needs to happen, he's working with them, not working for them. And like, and I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. I don't think he understands the long-term effect that that's going to have. Like, certainly he's not noticing it with Ingenium. Like, is like the way that Ingenium's talking about him to, you know, the other heroes is like I can't. It's like, I think it was Inertia who was like, I can't. She's like, I can hardly believe that's the same kid that we used to know.
Yeah.
And he's like, you saw the videos, right? Just wait till you see him in action out here. Like, you know, Kurai wasn't present for that part of the conversation, but yes, this was supposed to be a little bit of a look into how Kai's presence is starting to affect grouped efforts. And this is kind of like the first time we see Kai like in front of other heroes where it's not like he's there and then he's gone, because he kind of like, there were some heroes that tried to help him in Fukuoka when he fought the Shadow Nomu, but those guys were all there for like less than 30 seconds before they were either killed or sent somewhere else. Like, he hasn't been able to work alongside other pros for any real length of time other than like with Gang Orca, and that's been like, that was a hot minute ago, and he was basically just there strictly under Gang Orca supervision. He wasn't acting on his own. So this allows everybody else to see, okay, what does he actually bring to the table when he's a free agent kind of thing. So sorry if that was a big tangent, but especially for something that's kind of a background theme to this. But yes, the answer is it is going to start affecting the hero dynamics around him.
Anyway, back to the scenes with Ingenium. I didn't really expect to see the former sidekick that they mentioned a few chapters back, but it was kind of cool. What? Oh. I honestly don't think too much... Sorry, I'm like...
It's okay.
I'm going to have to start that over. I didn't expect to see the former sidekick that they mentioned a few chapters back, but that was kind of cool. I honestly didn't think too much about it at the time, but again, find myself facepalming because you rarely introduce a character just because you can. I guess there's been a one-sided thing going on there for a minute. Is that really why she left his agency? Probably, but at least it seems like they're still on good terms, and she's offering him another chance to notice her as a woman. Yeah, Tensei and Tenya are definitely related. Makes me wonder how dense their dad had to be back in Oh gosh. Okay, guys, somebody write a fan fiction about how the Ida's parents met.
Oh my goodness. I would read that story.
Absolutely.
What was I going to say? It's honestly not really one of the reasons that Inertia left the agency. Like, I think it made it easier for her to be away. Like her moving out of the agency was strictly a professional thing on her part. Like, she liked working for Ingenium, like, he's a good boss, but, you know, she was rising on her own in the rankings. It's like, you know, it's time to get out of the nest and do her own thing. Like, that's all there was to that. Now, her... her unrequited feelings probably made it easier for her to move away. But it wouldn't have been the driving force.
Also, his handling of his... Also, his handling of his brother and Mina's resolution during the closing scene was superb. No notes.
All right.
Cool. Kai and Cronoa coming back into the spotlight for this one. I can get behind it, especially given the topics that were covered through them. I'll start with a rather brutal description of the fact that even the heroes cannot save everyone. I know that we saw Mina coming across bodies in the last chapter, but it seems like that one was more centered on how it affected the heroes instead of the other victims around them. Also, in the last chapter, we seem to see either total success, her rescuing the mom and 2 kids, or total failure, the dead people in the collapsed houses. In this one, we saw what a mixed bag looks like, with the heroes being able to save some, but not others in a family unit. And something about that was especially gripping. I actually felt my gut twisting up inside when that one kid starts trying to go back for her brother who's got to be dead by then. It was an interesting dichotomy, having Eri and Kurai, the 2 who are arguably the most mentally prepared to deal with this kind of thing, be the ones to handle this kind of extreme, as opposed to Mina, who was already just beginning to come to grips with only just beginning to come to grips with the realities of that kind of horror. It allowed us, the readers, to really appreciate how the event affects both sides of the narrative without overwhelming the content itself, if that makes any kind of sense.
It does make sense, and I honestly did not notice the fact that I didn't notice that contrast, honestly, like Mina having like total success or total failure as opposed to Kurai and Eri having a mixed success. I didn't plan that, honestly. Like I planned the sequence of events, but I didn't plan for that contrast to happen. So happy accident.
Cool. Yeah, and I think that one was more real, because when you have this kind of tragedy, it's like everybody's affected to some extent. And usually, like with something that extreme, you're not going to have too many people that didn't lose someone.
No.
And so I think that moment was very compelling in that way. Yeah.
I did want that one to stick out, especially, and I'm glad, because it seems like from what the readers are saying that I managed to do that. It was a hard scene to write.
Yeah.
Like that was really difficult for me to like actually get through. Because like I haven't experienced a tragedy like that. I can't speak to knowing firsthand what all that feels like. I can only just imagine it. And I'm glad that
nightmarish.
I'm glad that I was able to capture this in a way that it stands out to people, because when the stuff does happen, it's really awful and terrible. But at least from the psychological perspective, I've tried with this story and with Kurai's problems, I've tried to at least somewhat draw my own experiences and then just, magnify them. But this is kind of one of those ones where I was nervous about it, because I'm like, I've never gone to a natural disaster zone. I've never been able to help get people out of that or anything. So I could only venture guesses into this one. So I'm glad that it seems to be coming out in a way that people are able to remember it for what it's supposed to be remembered for.
Next on my docket of notices was Kurai's conversation with the 10th vestige and his thought process leading up to it. That's never going to be a weird dynamic.
That's never not going to be a weird
dynamic. Okay, I'll let you read.
Oh, okay. That's never not going to be a weird dynamic, but it's one of the things that helps these characters stand out, so it's good in my book. In any case, the subject that they discussed is what really held my attention, which is almost surprising given how short the discussion was. I refer, of course, to the subject of Eri's accidental journey through time, and the potential that a repeat of such an event could hold for our heroes. I think that the consequences mentioned by the 10th were more or less inferred by the narrative, if not some of the characters, but having it put into words makes it a lot easier to comprehend just how dangerous such an ability actually is. I know you guys have brought up the Superman conundrum several times before, but I think it worth mentioning here again. How scary is that, to realize that you have created this arguably damaged character who could rewrite everything almost at her whim? Going forward in this story, I now have to wonder if something so horrible will happen that it will force Eri and Kai to consider compromising their principles. Considering everything that they have been through while refusing to turn back time even further, I am forced to wonder what such an event could be, because knowing you've got something cooking. You wouldn't introduce this topic in story without it being meant to contribute to some future event. I think they're learning.
Yeah, they've been reading your stuff long enough.
Yeah, 107 chapters at this point of this stuff. My goodness. Yeah, we've talked about the Superman conundrum that Eri now presents. But yeah, it was, yeah, like we have talked about it in a meta sense, but I felt like it was time for Kurai to kind of like sit and think for a moment about what all that power like the implications of what having that power could be. Because like he just starts thinking about it, he's like, man, how would I, he just kind of has the thought of like, man, she's really brave for sticking to her choices. And he just kind of has the idle thought almost of like, I wonder what I would do with that power. Because I'm sure like at any given point in this society in particular, kids in particular would be like, I wonder what I would do if I had that hero's quirk, or what would I do if I had that person's power, or so on and so forth. Because like we all like to play that game. It's like, what would I do if I had $1 million tax free, or won the lottery, something such like that. So for them, like having powerful quirks is kind of like winning the lottery. So with that in mind, I kind of wanted to steer it in that direction to where he's kind of like, I wonder what would happen if, and then he really starts thinking about it. He's like, what would I do if I could go back with all that? And he starts thinking about all this stuff. His brain like just goes back to all the stuff that has, like, at first it goes back to stuff that has impacted him negatively. Because he's like, if I went back in time, I could tell my parents not to make the deal with All for One. He's like, or I could go save my uncle, so on and so forth. But then he also starts thinking about like, oh, if I did go back and I did undo this stuff, I probably would never go to UA. I wouldn't know any of my friends from this class. Ida and I probably would have drifted apart, which I felt was important to include. Because even if him and Ida are not as close as they were, they're still important to each other. So I did want to touch on that, like, and I'm kind of trying. That's been another one of like those background themes for this arc of being. It's been kind of meant to reinforce, like, look, Kurai and Ida are not close anymore, but they are friends. They still care about each other a lot. Like, I don't want people to think that like that went away. Just because they were at odds and then they made up and they just don't hang out as often anymore. So I felt like that was an important thing to touch on. But yeah, that would be a very scary ability to have for anybody, especially one with principles and morality as strong as theirs. Yeah. Let's see. Does Umbra have a music theme? Because if he does, I feel like it would be playing in the background of that conversation. He's the one that comes to mind with the potential for something that terrifying happening in the story. Maybe that's because he's such an unknown more than anything, but that he scares me for the characters in the story. But that's my best guess for the time being. Does Umbra have a music theme?
We're gonna have to find.
I'm gonna have to figure something out for that.
I feel like there's gotta be some.
There's gotta be some
really good song.
Yuki Hayakashi, or sorry, I think it's Hayashi. Yuki Hayashi, the composer for My Hero Academia, is a freaking genius.
Yeah.
Like, the music that this guy creates, like, I am a firm believer in the fact that My Hero Academia owes half of its success to that man.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the music that he came with. Like, the story's great, the action scenes are good, but the music just takes it to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's been videos and like I think there's been like a thesis written on why You Say Run goes with everything. Because that was a fad for like 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
Like everybody was cutting up whichever anime scene they could get their hands on and applying You Say Run to it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like Team 4-Star even got it on.
Not just anime. Just
not
everything.
everything. Like
live action.
Like
other anime
Team
things.
4-Star even got on it to where they took the music out of the Gohan versus Perfect Cell scene and they threw in that music. They threw in that music for it, and I was just, and like, I don't blame any of them. I'm like, yes, this is definitely music worth listening to. I'm like, I used to joke. I was like, I would be doing chores and listening to music, and I would feel like I didn't want to do anything anymore. And then You Say Run comes on, and I'm like, all right, let's go. I can take on everything now. I can clean the whole gosh darn house. And then I would. But yeah, it's does Umbra have a theme? Yeah, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one. Let's see. That's the thing that stood out most to me for Kai and Cronoa's involvement, but there are definitely other things worthy of note. Kurai finding what I assumed to be the remains of his elementary school bully was not something that I saw coming. I kind of had this half-formed idea that he was going to be one of the people that they rescued, admittedly because I was kind of laughing at the thought of Eri getting pissed at someone who used to pick on Kurai and Tenya. Dang it, I wish I would have thought of that. Oh, that's a really tempting idea.
What was it? I missed it.
He said, I kind of had this half-formed idea that the bully was going to be one of the people that they rescued, admittedly because I was kind of laughing at the thought of Eri getting pissed at someone who used to pick on Kurai and Tenya.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's a really compelling thought. I'm not sorry that I went the direction that I did, but that's a really good thought. Oh. Let's see, they go on to say, but the turn that narrative took was another gut punch. It's a very odd sensation in that I almost want to feel vindication on Kurai's behalf. But to see him react the way that he did, not that I honestly would have expected anything else from him, left me feeling kind of empty inside. There's no justice to be had for Kurai in getting to prove to his old bully that he could rise above his taunts. Just nothing, I guess. Yeah, I mean, like, how do I put, like, I feel like something that's done a lot in storytelling is that people focus on unresolved issues like between friends and romantic partners and the like. I don't think people acknowledge often enough that there can be unresolved things towards the people that make your life miserable.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for getting that kind of closure, but when that's taken away from you, there's still some kind of emptiness left. There's some kind of void that needs to be filled.
Yeah, I could see that.
Does that make any sense?
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Because like it's really weird because like it's a really, I'm gonna say, perverted connection. Like you know, we, like, as human beings, we're meant to be connected to people around us in a good way, right? And because of the way that we are, as we're kind of vindictive creatures, when we're robbed of that chance, like, we don't even have the there's two ways that can go in my line of thought. One is you can pursue the revenge, and then, you know, it's like whether or not the revenge leaves you feeling empty inside, that kind of depends on who you are. But the other one is where you want to seek out to forgive that person. And when you're robbed of that, you still feel that loss. And or at least the loss of that chance to be like, hey, I wanted to forgive you.
Yeah, I definitely
or I wanted to
get
let
that.
go of things.
Yeah.
And then you just are kind of left with your end of the rope. Does that make sense?
No, that definitely makes sense.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like that's a really complex. That's a really complex feeling.
No, I see
feel
it,
like.
and I mean, I have a couple people where it's like I don't know if I'll ever see them again, and so I know we're probably never gonna make up or whatever, or just have closure, and so I know at some point they're gonna be gone, and I won't have that, and so it's kind of a weird, ambiguous feeling, for sure. But of course, in this situation, it's way more grotesque because you actually get to see the person.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like, oh, there ain't no
life.
coming back from that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, okay. Yeah, point is, I see what you're saying. Let's see. The talks between the One for All users throughout continue to delight my sibling bantering fancy. I blame Full Metal Alchemist and Blue Exorcist for starting it. Yes. I can see that. Eri and Kurai just work so well together, both in actions and dispositions, and I love it. They make each other laugh, support the other at any given opportunity, and cover for each other when they need it, and I love it. Something about that last scene where they are just so tired that they are devolving into giggle machines was somehow endearing, hilarious, and concerning all at the same time. How do you keep eliciting so many emotions from me?
Yay, that's the goal.
Yup. That's the goal, is to make you experience the full spectrum of emotions for each chapter.
Well, I mean, and I love that you relate it to
Full Metal?
Full Metal, because that's usually the show that we reference when we talk about that.
Yeah.
Like how...
Although it's interesting, because usually when we've brought up Full Metal Alchemist, it's kind of like, it's between Kurai and Akaduri. So it's kind of funny that they're now attributing this to Kurai and Eri.
Yeah.
Which I like. I like the idea.
I think the reason I really love My Hero is that you really get that camaraderie happening. Like, by the time, like, for example, when you're watching Last Airbender, right? You guys know we love that show. It's perfect, you know? But, you know, by the end, with everybody just, like, working together with the final battle and just, like, the banter and the goofiness and the intensity, that is just such a great
Time to take the wheel.
feeling.
That's a great idea. Let the blind girl drive the giant airship.
Exactly.
I was talking to Suki. That makes more sense.
That is the exact scene I was just thinking of. It's a little
Have I
scary.
ever mentioned how sweet it is that you invented metal bending? You could stand to mention it more.
Anyway,
Sorry.
One of the reasons I appreciate My Hero is because I want to say by the second movie, you really get that feeling of just the gel with all the characters and that really fun byplay and everyone just kind of.
I'm looking forward to the fourth.
Of each other.
I'm looking forward to the fourth movie because, so like in the third movie, we kind of got more of that between Todoroki, Bakugo, and Deku. But in the fourth movie, it looks like we're going to get to see them all kind of grouping up together again. And I'm interested because, like you said, in the second movie, one of the reasons it's my favorite is the class dynamic gets explored throughout the whole movie. And you just get to see them all working together.
Which I love.
Yes. I'm looking forward to seeing that again in this fourth movie.
Yeah, like I love the third one. Rhodey's my favorite original character for the movies. But yeah, I have to agree with you. Just as far as just like the My Hero Academia, like good like warm fuzzy feeling of everybody coming together as a team.
It's like, and it doesn't feel super cheesy either.
No, because like we're not talking fairy tale power of love and friendship and corniness and cleavage, right? And so,
well, I think Yai Rose has got the cleavage department covered, but
that's not the focus, right? It's like a side thing. It's her hero costume. We're not just like staring at it all the time like in fairy tale.
Yeah.
But it's just it's like it's a really good balance. It's not the same level of corny.
Well, it feels. I think the word we're looking for is organic.
Yeah.
The dynamics are very organic between everybody, and that's hard to do. Let's see, some closing thoughts here. We also finally get the full picture of why Kurai hates the media with a burning passion, so yeah, I'm going to have to go back and read the scenes where he has to deal with the news outlets and all of them with this knowledge in mind. See what that does for me. Alright. Have fun with that. Let's see, looking forward to seeing how Kurai and company handle the aftermath of this whole thing. As always, happy writing into your next entry, good sir. I appreciate that. I am almost always happy to write. I'm almost always happy to write.
This is his happy place right here.
Yep. Let's see. Bonus question, which I'll do my best to come up with each review going forward, seeing how excited you seem to be over the Demon Slayer one last time. What kind of Jedi would Kurai, Akudori, and Shuken be? Lightsaber color, force specialties, etc. You can go by old EU canon rules or Disney canon, whichever you feel comfortable with. Interested to see what you come up with. Ooh.
So he said Kurai, Akudori, and Shuken?
Yeah. So Kurai would be... So if we're going by Old Republic rules, Kurai would actually be a yellow one.
Really?
Yeah, he would be a sentinel.
See, because I was going to say Akudori would either be that or a gray Jedi.
He'd have a green saber.
Yeah.
Because he's all about the intellectual pursuits.
Okay.
And that's what the green lightsabers are.
Gotcha.
They're the ones who perceive and pursue the mysteries of the Force.
Gotcha.
They're the ones that are more likely to have like visions of the future, learn the healing arts, become diplomats, that kind of thing. I don't really see Akudori being a diplomat so much as I see him being a scholar. But again, green saber for Akudori, like that would be his specialty. I feel like his specialty in studying the Force would be how to apply it medically. Like how to slow...
Like a Force healer.
Not even a Force healer so much as like how it could... Like, so there's a lot of different medical applications for the Force. In the old canon, you could use it to slow someone down. And this was first used in the medical field to like slow someone's approach to death. It's like you slow down their bodily functions while preserving their higher brain functions. Some Sith figured out how to do this for battle purposes, so they would slow down their opponents in combat and use that to cut them down. but Akuduri would probably be one of the ones who would figure out, like, okay, we can do this to help speed up healing or, like, preserve their life long enough to get them to a Kolto tank or whatever.
Cool.
So on and so forth. Kurai, again, he's about protecting. He's about protecting people, and to a degree, he's about going after the bad guys. That's what the Sentinels did. They were the guardians of the Jedi temples, and they would they didn't leave the temple very often, but when they did, they were dispatched to deal with enemies that had it out for the Jedi Order and their temple specifically. Like, they were the ones keeping, like, so like, there's that question that gets asked a few times in My Hero Academia. It's like, who protects the heroes when they're down? The Jedi Sentinels are kind of the ones that do that for the Jedi.
Gotcha. Okay, what about Shuken?
Shuken would probably be I'm gonna say Shuken would be a standard blue.
Okay.
He would be a warrior. I don't think that he would have any specialties in particular, because you got to remember, he has a quirk that would lend him to being a really good hero, but he doesn't feel that drive for himself, and he knows that, like, if he's not driven in that way, he shouldn't do people a disservice by providing a mediocre hero. So, like, he's in a really weird way, I feel like he'd be one of the people that Stain kind of respects, because Shuken respects what it means to be a hero and what that takes, what the sacrifice can be. So, like, I'm not saying that Shuken agrees with the hero killer Stain, but their ideologies are actually somewhat similar.
Yeah, he's just kind of I guess if you would compare it to the heroes being the people who are, like, wanting to make a change in politics, while Shuken would be more like the people who are so disillusioned. It's like, nah, I'm just gonna keep my head down and do my job, because
I'm trying to work my 9 to 5 and do as well as I can throughout life. Yeah. So Kurai would be a Jedi Sentinel. Lightsaber combat would be his specialty. Akuduri would be green. Medical studies of the Force would be his specialty. Shuken, standard Jedi Knight, go kick the bad guys' butts.
Nice.
Whenever he has to.
Very nice.
So, yeah, that was fun.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
That was easier to come up with.
That was a lot easier to come up with than the last one, but that's probably because I'm a way bigger Star Wars nerd than I am Demon Slayer.
Gosh, yeah. See, and then my kids wanted to watch the Star Wars episodes that I've seen the most often today, and so it was fantastic because I was able to give them all the lore. I was like, oh, I love this. Love this. Oh, what's that ship? Oh, well, that's an Imperial Star Destroyer. Well, that's an Imperial Cruiser. Oh, that's a TIE Fighter.
That's an Imperial Super Star Destroyer.
That's a Snow Speeder. Yep.
That is a Tauntaun.
Yep, that is a Tauntaun.
That's a dead Tauntaun. That's a Wampa.
Yeah.
The Wampa's eating the dead Tauntaun.
Yeah, Natalie was like, what is happening? Yep, that's a Wampa.
That's funny.
It was pretty great.
See, I'm the annoying guy who would be telling them, hey, so Luke's face is all bandaged up because the actor who plays him got in a really terrible accident?
I thought about telling them that, but they were so, like, mortified while Han was shoving him into the dead Tauntaun that I was like, I think I'm gonna let this trauma sit for a little bit. I'll tell him next time we watch this movie.
New trauma!
Yeah.
Alrighty, guys. Well, thank you so much for your reviews. We will go ahead and let you get on with listening to the audio portion of this. The audio chapter, I should say. Sorry, my tongue's very tied today. Had a long day at work. Let you get to it. Be back in a minute.
In my past brought me to the end. I was stuck in limbo, hoping to be dead wrong. No, they took everything from me. Nothing left to see, burning down slowly. Can't bury the truth, the past is far from dead. The chances we lose when we chose never to forget. When choices made, I forced the blame.
Kurai estimated that there was about 50 meters separating him and Eri from their goal. Hardly a great distance for anyone, much less two heroes with abilities like theirs. Unfortunately, it seemed that it would be the longest walk they'd been through all week, given the small sea of reporters and camera crews between them and the bus that was supposed to take them home. Already the din of noise and flashing lights were serving to augment the headaches that had settled in on the pair, making it difficult to keep their eyes open, much less focus on trying to put one foot in front of the other. All Kurai really wanted to do right then was flick his fingers and blow a path through their obstacles, but that would be wrong, and he knew that. Never makes it any less tempting, he thought dourly as he imagined the black lightning destroying the microphones and cameras going off in his face. He knew he was being asked questions, but he was so tired and drained that none of the words being directed at him were entering his consciousness in a sensible manner. It all just sounded like the rumbling of a highway tunnel from a distance to him, and he realized he was actually dangerously close to just collapsing where he was as his vision started to swim in and out of focus. Just let us get some rest, he thought sluggishly as he tried to take a step forward, only to have his foot slip on the mud and send him tipping sideways. He would have fallen face first in the earth if a shining arm hadn't caught him up at the last second. Easy there, buddy, said a familiar voice that temporarily registered with the exhausted hero's failing awareness. Kurai blinked slowly as he looked over to see Tensei supporting his body weight with a tired grin, though he did not appear anywhere near as worn out as the guardian hero and his partner. Come on, the older Yuta said as he urged his friend to move his feet. Let's get you home. Sound good? Yeah. Struck by a thought, Kurai blinked again before forcing himself to mumble. Wait, what about... I got your friend, Kai. Inertia said from his other side, where he could now see the woman handling Eri in a similar manner to the way that he was being supported. The woman smiled at him as she said, You two did great out there helping everyone. Let's take a turn and help you. Even as she said the words, Kurai realized that the flashing lights, while not having decreased in volume, were being blocked by something. Or rather, quite a few somethings. Aight, you people got your tabloid shots, now beat it! Rocklock was saying as he and about a dozen other heroes could be seen pushing back against the camera crews, much to the protest of the media workers. These two aren't in any kind of shape to be hosting an interview right now, added Tempest, whose stern gaze was enough to make the paparazzi members closest to him back up, even if just a little bit. They may be front page material, but they're kids and they're exhausted. Have some heart, people. Back it up, Loop-de-Loop, or was it one of her clones, shouted as she and four other replicates could be seen widening a gap in the crowd of people so that the two teenagers and their helpers would have an unobstructed path to the bus. I'm sure you all know we ain't seen the last of these two. Let them off for today. They've more than earned it. There were many sounds of protest that continued to bombard the heroes until the young pair had been taken up into the bus, after which the driver shut the doors behind them, cutting down the noise level drastically. Thanks, Sensei. Kurai managed to mumble out as he was all but dragged up the aisle, many of other heroes who had already been seated looking up at him and Eri with interest and awe. Anytime, kiddo, the other hero assured him. Come on, we got a great seat saved, just for you. Before Kurai could ask what he meant, a warm body of pink decorated in a filthy purple and green leotard entered his field of vision and caught him up in an embrace that he instantly melted into. Mina, he whispered, tears of relief threatening to leak out of his eyes as she took his weight from Tensei, who immediately backed up a couple of paces. I missed you. I know, she replied gently as she ran her aching, bandaged fingers through his hair, which nearly put him to sleep on the spot. Sensing this, she moved quickly to guide him into the seat next to the window, which he collapsed into without another word. Get some rest, love, she told him before planting a chaste kiss on his forehead, which drew a reflexive smile out of him. Before the sound had even finished leaving his mouth, he was dead asleep. While that was happening, Tenya, who was seated in the row behind her, had moved to help Inertia get Eri into a similar setup. Neither of the tired heroes had the time or capacity to notice it, but each of their seats had been set up with soft blankets that would make for a more comfortable ride home. Thank you for doing that, Mina said to Tensei, who smiled at her in return. It was our pleasure, he assured her. Take good care of him, Ashido. Japan may need a hero like him, but he needs all the support that he can get to be that hero. Kurai is in excellent hands with her, Tenya said over his shoulder as he placed one of the blankets on Eri's now shivering body. As he straightened up, he added, It is no exaggeration to say that without Ashido, there would be no Kai. Not as we, and now the world at large, know him. Glad to hear it. Tensei smiled again, even as Mina looked at her classmate with some surprise. Before any of them could say anything else, the driver called from up the front, All right, we better get going. If you're not leaving with us, you best get off now. We're already running late thanks to the cameras, and I just as soon get these youngins home. Right, sorry. Tensei apologized as he began to move back toward the front of the bus, inertia close behind him. Thanks again for holding the bus for him. Don't mention it. The driver replied as he rubbed the back of his spiny hair. He helped save some of my brothers live in Fukuoka. Least I could do try to repay him a little bit. Safe drive, Inertia said as she glanced back over her shoulder one more time to see Mina tucking a blanket around Kurai's shoulders, oblivious of all the curious gazes from the other heroes and volunteers on the bus. Many of them were student heroes like UA members, and not much older than Kurai himself. She realized that it must be strange to see someone your own age who had already accomplished so much, more than many of them would ever achieve in their entire careers. Even stranger to see such a legend get tired and collapse just like any other mortal, she thought with a little smile as she stepped back onto the rain. Hopefully he can sleep the whole way back, because if he wakes up before then, I get the feeling the media won't be the only ones with enough questions to bring out his snappy side. As it turned out, the bus ride had many stops to make, even after they had made it to Mustafa, though Kurai and Ari both awoke about 30 minutes before they reached the city limits. Kurai tried his best to return to sleep once he realized that he was waking up on Mina's shoulder, but his neck started to cramp up, which forced him to shift his weight and stretch it out a bit. Morning, sleepyhead, his favorite voice told him as he blinked and then yawned. The moment was then kind of ruined when Mina added, dude, ever heard of breath mints? Sorry, he mumbled as he covered his mouth and rubbed at his eyes. Didn't really have time to floss between mealtime and extracts. I'm kidding, she teased him as she tapped him softly on the nose. Mine's probably not much better. Don't care. He mumbled as he got himself to blink a few times, forcing his eyes to adjust to the incoming light of the early afternoon sun. I'm just glad you're here. As sweet as it is to hear you say that, we should probably save any more pillow talk for our pillows at home, she whispered as she softly nudged him with an elbow. You've got people who have been wanting to talk to you for a few hours now. Kurai's face immediately soured before he threw his blanket over his face. If it's a camera crew, tell them to shove the mic up their ass, he growled in a voice muffled by the soft fabric. Sweetie, no one has a mic in here, and the people who want to talk are the ones who provided those blankets you're hiding in, she said with a light grin, even though he couldn't see her. I promise they're cool, so quit hiding and come say hi. Is he always that grumpy when he wakes up? Ari asked as she looked down at his covered head with an abject curiosity. Actually, he's usually in a pretty good mood, even when he gets up with the frickin' sun, Mina replied, her tone becoming somewhat flat toward the end of her sentence. No, this is just what happens whenever he thinks there might be a camera aimed at him from somewhere. Even as she said this, she poked at a spot underneath his left rib cage, where there was a scar that had been left by one of Nine's lasers. As Mina and Kurai had noted on several occasions beforehand, the repaired flesh was incredibly sensitive given the right circumstances, and her prodding resulted in him letting out a yelp and throwing the blanket clear off his body while he stood up straight with a stricken look on his face. For real? He cried as he held his side in an effort to prevent any more tickling. Yep, she said as she stuck her tongue out at him. You have been asleep for 5 hours in a chair, Ida commented from behind his friend, who turned to look at him. That cannot be good for your health or your posture or circulation. A bit of movement on your part will be beneficial to you. Kurai was about to tell Tanya what he could do with his posture when he noticed that he was on the receiving end of nearly 24 sets of eyes from around the bus. It was only then that he finally remembered that he was on a transport with many other young heroes on their way to their homes and realized that they were the people Mina must have been telling him about. Hi? He said awkwardly, not sure of who to address first. One of the other heroes, who looked to be a senior in high school, waved back at him from about 3 rows down and answered, Yo, good to see you're okay, number one. Please do not call me that, especially if she told you to. Kurai sighed as he jerked a thumb at Mina, who gave him a cheeky grin in response. I'm not on the rankings yet, and I don't want people to have unrealistic expectations for my career, as ludicrous a claim as that may seem. Dude, if there were billboard charts for student heroes, you'd definitely be number one for that, replied a girl with sapphires for eyes. You literally saved the world a few weeks ago. It's not inaccurate. You'd have my vote if I could split it between you and Deku. Kurai turned back once again to see Eri now grinning up at him, to which he gave her a flat look. Stop encouraging them, he muttered loud enough for her to hear. Stop being a buzzkill, Mina interjected playfully. Yo, Kai! What? Kurai looked around the bus until he spotted another young hero waving at him from closer to the front. Can we get a selfie with you? They called over. The requested hero looked down at his fiancée, who immediately got up and stepped aside to let him out, which he knew meant he'd better get moving. Coming, he called out as he made his way up the aisle. Hey, bring your sidekick, called out a girl who was getting out her phone. Hearing this, Kurai paused, looking incredulous as he did. You talking about... he asked as he looked back to see Aries' head leaning into the aisle, a curious expression on her face. Cronoa's nobody's sidekick. She's more amazing than I'll ever hope to be. Hearing this, the majority of the student heroes on the bus were fairly surprised and found their attentions directed toward the raven-haired heroine, who reddened and ducked behind Mina's seat to avoid making eye contact with anyone. More amazing than the guy who declared a one-man war against Humorize and won? Inquired the girl who had requested Aries' participation in a photo. That war was hardly a one-man operation, Kurai replied as he shook his head vehemently in the negative. I got the ball rolling, but there were other heroes who carried it home, 2 of whom are sitting with us, Cronoa and Acid Queen. Hi, Mina chirped as she waved at everyone with a cheery grin on her face. She and a few of my other classmates took on several hundred Humorize fanatics so that Deku, Cronoa, and I could deal with Fleckturn. Kurai explained as he smiled fondly at the pink girl. Without her help, we probably wouldn't have made it back in time to stop the trigger bombs, which, by the way, was done by Cronoa, not me. Also, beating Fleckturn? That didn't happen until she showed up to help me and Deku out. You want to thank someone for saving the world? She's over there. I just kept the maniac busy for a little while. Kai, you're exaggerating, Eri called from behind Mina's seat, apparently too shy to show her face now. What, you're saying she's powerful enough to take on somebody you couldn't beat? Asked another boy who was craning his neck as if to try and get a better look at the reclusive girl. Damn right, Kurai answered with a proud grin as he finally reached the group that had originally singled him out. Without her, I'd be toast a dozen times over by now. Wait, how come she wasn't in the sports festival then? Asked yet another heroine while her neighbors moved to gather around Kurai for the photo, most of them looking overly excited as they did. If she's really that amazing, how come we didn't see her compete there? UA is kind of spastic when it comes to admissions, and a lot of other things, Mina answered before Kurai could. Cronoa here wasn't able to get in until later in the year, but trust me, you'll see plenty of her in the next sports fest. Please stop, both of you, Eri begged the vibrant girl from where she continued to hide. Oh man, she's kind of cute, whispered one of the sophomore heroes who was now only a couple of rows ahead of Kurai. Go ask for her number, encouraged one of his friends in an equally low tone, which led to the first boy shaking his head rapidly. Dude, no way, he protested. She really is that amazing? I got no shot in hell. For some reason, Kurai was finding it very difficult not to activate Black Whip and strangle the Cape duo where they sat. Logically, he knew there was nothing wrong with guys taking an interest in Eri. She was pretty, kind, and a top-notch hero already. That would be enough to turn any guy's head in this day and age, and he knew that. None of that stopped his protective instincts from kicking into overdrive almost instantly. It was with great force of will that he managed to contain the fifth's power while telling himself, she's not the little girl who needs rescuing from Chisaki. She is the same age as me and the others, and I'm sure that she can handle herself when it comes to boys. The thought that Mina was certain to run interference if someone got up to any funny business around Eri was probably the deciding factor in him managing to calm himself. All the same. I wonder if Akadori still knows how to profile people who come into... What am I saying? Of course he still knows how. Kai, can we grab a pic too? Kurai's head swiveled until he spotted the source of the request, which happened to be a girl with purple-black hair. Seeing her for a second, his vision blurred and replaced the heroine with an image of Switch, laughing as he felt Blake's katana sliding through his body. He felt his breath catch while his scars sitting over and through his right lung burned fiercely. But, dude, are you okay? Asked one of the guys who had just taken a picture with him and his friends. He stood up and put a steadying hand on Kurai's shoulder to help keep him stable, as the boy had started to sway back and forth while paling rapidly. Ugh. He gasped as he shook his head and massaged his ribcage, trying to dispel the image and sensations that haunted him as quickly as possible. Sorry. Guess I'm still waking up. You need help getting back to your seat? I think I got it. Kurai gave the other hero a wobbly smile before saying, Thanks for the offer, though. Thanks for the photo, dude. He answered with a thumbs up while he returned to his own seat. My kid brother's going to be so jealous. He's a big fan of yours. Well, maybe before you get off, I can sign something for him? Kurai offered as he started moving away. Best of both worlds. You get to rub something in his face and then be the hero for snagging something just for him? Hey, I might take you up on that. The other hero grinned a little more brightly. Thanks again, Kai. No problem, he replied before he turned all the way around, only to see he was right next to the girl who triggered his near fainting spell, who was looking up at him hopefully. Seeing her up close, he could see that she possessed bright green snake's eyes, very much unlike the purple ones that had given Switch her own power. This detail made it a little easier to be in proximity to her, but he was still feeling shaken from his brief panic attack. Can I catch you up on that in a little bit? He asked, hoping that his voice wasn't shaking too badly. I don't feel too good right now. Okay. She answered, clearly disappointed, but polite enough to know that she shouldn't press the issue. As Kurai started to move away, however, one of her neighbors seemed to have a different opinion. Told you he doesn't care about B-listers like us, grumbled another girl who had orange hair and narrow black eyes. Anko, that's uncalled for, her apparent friend whispered sharply before looking up at a surprised Kurai apologetically. Seriously, don't worry about it, she insisted. I know I'm beat, and I didn't do nearly as much as you did out there. If you're tired, I get it, really. Why are you making excuses for him? Anko now demanded of her peer. It's not like he cares what we think of him. Hey! Mina now snapped from where she was leaning into the aisle, a scowl on her face. What's your damage? In the meantime, Kurai was now standing in the main aisle, roughly equidistant between his fiancée and the rude girl. Just trying to show my friend a hard reality? Anko shrugged. Heroes like you don't care about people like us. We'll probably end up as cleanup crews for big shot agencies that come out of UA, and while there's nothing wrong with that, I don't remember the last time anyone cared enough about sidekicks to even bother remembering their hero names. Your boyfriend obviously didn't even want to get up in the first place, so I don't see why Arya is getting her hopes up just because we happen to be riding the same bus as people like you. Anko, seriously! Arya protested, her face flushing deep red with embarrassment. You're taking this too far. Yeah, lay off the guy! Jeered another student hero as he and some of his friends aimed a scowl at Anko, who affected not to pay attention to them. If you worked half as hard as he did, maybe you'd have a shot at being something more than a cleanup crew, snapped another. Okay, that's enough, Kurai interrupted before any more heated comments could be added, a weary look on his face. She is welcome to her opinion. It's nothing I haven't dealt with before. Media has been trashing my family name since before I was born, so it's not like I shouldn't have expected people to stop now. With that, he moved as quickly as his unsteady legs would carry him back to his seat, where Mina welcomed him, though she kept a glare leveled in the direction of the girl who had heckled him. Bitch, she muttered under her breath. Don't. He sighed as he leaned his head back and closed his eyes, focused on regulating his breathing so he could try and still his shaking muscles. It's not worth it. Worth it to me, Mina grumbled, though she neglected to move from his side after settling back into the seat next to him. Seriously, what is it with you and letting people walk all over you? Better to let them walk how they want than prove them right by stomping them underfoot. He shrugged in response. Haters gonna hate. What happened over there? Ari asked him, her voice just low enough that only he and their two friends could hear. You looked fine until that girl asked you for a photo. Don't tell me you're afraid of Mina getting jealous. She added the last part with a little grin, but her eyes shone with nothing but concern for the boy. Didn't you see it? Kurai asked Mina, which initially confused the others. She kind of looks like Switch. The paint girl finished for him, her own face paling as recognition set in. Oh, yeah, I can see that. Switch? Ari repeated, looking even more confused than before. Switch was the villain responsible for Kurai's first severe injury on Naboo Island. Tenya clarified for her, which erased her look of confusion. I didn't get a good look at the villain myself, but given his and Ashido's reaction, the resemblance must be quite striking. Only at a distance, Kurai said with a small shake of his head. I honestly feel really bad about leaving her hanging, but I just couldn't handle it for a moment. Well, take some time to compose yourself, but don't keep her waiting for long, Tenya advised him. We'll be coming up on our first city stop soon, and we don't know when she has to get off. It would be rude to hold up the departure of the other students by obstructing the exit while you take it. All right, just give me a minute to breathe, Kurai said with a roll of his eyes. I said I would go back, and I will. He was about to add more when he noticed something out of the corner of his eye. Without any warning, a tendril of Black Whip shot out and intercepted a spitball from striking the girl who had been rude to him before. The energy dissipated as soon as it had appeared, though the look of disapproval that Kurai had donned remained fixated on the student who tried to pelt the girl. Dick move, he said loud enough for the other boy, and those in close proximity, to hear. What? Dude, she's the one picking on you! He protested, which drew the attention of Arya and Anko. Why would you? Because I said she's welcome to her opinion, and I meant that, Kurai said sternly. What did your plan accomplish beyond instigating more trouble than it's worth, and annoying me? Don't bother questioning him, Mina sighed as she sat up in her seat so that she could make eye contact with the other boy. He's let people stuff his locker with pepper bombs without complaining. It'd take more than this to make him mad enough to want payback. Wait, for real? Asked another student. Why would somebody do that to him? My father was coerced into aiding the League of Villains that attacked our school. Kurai deadpanned in response, causing many of the listeners to cringe in discomfort as they were forced to remember that awkward fact. Even though my brother's life and mine were being held hostage from a distance by All for One, people weren't too keen on thanking me for that particular fact. A lot of them blame me for the attacks happening to begin with. Which is completely asinine, Ari grumbled. If I'd fought back like others expected me to, people's reasons for fearing and hating me would have only multiplied. The Guardian hero elaborated with a shrug. I'd rather spend my time and efforts on problems that actually matter, like how I'm going to get through the next natural disaster that hits. Failing that, I just don't care enough about how people see me to spend any second thoughts on how to appease people who are determined to hate me. You say that, but you defended her from something she had coming, protested another of the students as he jabbed a stiff finger at Anko, who looked unaffected by the conversation as a whole. I care to defend people from unnecessary hardship if I'm in a position to prevent it, Kurai replied firmly. Again, picking a fight with someone just because they have a different opinion than you accomplishes nothing productive. There are plenty of villains out there far more deserving of our aggressive tendencies than a fellow hero who sees things differently than we do. Okay, it seems like you're kind of making a bigger deal out of this than it needs to be, volunteered yet another one of the students further up the bus. He's on your side. Why are you giving him the third degree? All it takes is a single act that can seem meaningless to one person but can change another's entire perspective. The white-haired teen answered, his tone becoming harder as he did. Don't ever think you've understood someone's entire story based on the chapter you walked in on. Before you ask again why I'm so worked up about this, I'll tell you that one of the villains responsible for my death was more than likely at some point one of those people who was on the receiving end of those kind of snap judgments. He paused to let his words sink in before he concluded, if she had never been subjected to those seemingly harmless cruelties, maybe I wouldn't have ended up with a sword through my chest. His blunt description of his injury caused many of those listening to squirm with discomfort as they reflexively imagined the horrendous pain that such an experience must have caused him. Yeah, heroes may be in charge of stopping villains, but flashy takedowns aren't enough to accomplish that. Maybe we try and prevent ourselves from creating new enemies to society by exercising some self-control every now and again. Yeah. Done saying his piece, he folded his arms across his chest and turned to look out the window at the passing hillside. There was a few moments of awkward silence before some of the heroes started to break into smaller group conversations. While this was happening, Mina leaned closer to Kurai and asked in a lowered tone, "Since when are you in the habit of explaining yourself to people like that? I remember the last time I didn't adequately explain why I do what I do. Everyone got on my case and we argued for like a month." He grumbled under his breath, his eyes glazing over. "That, and I don't need people going after my haters. It's only going to cause more problems than it's worth." "Doing your utmost to keep the peace in all circumstances is quite admirable," Ida said from behind them, which caused Kurai to shut his eyes tightly before Mina could lower her voice and ask what he was reliving in that moment. She'd seen that look in his eyes enough times by now to know that something more dangerous than a mudslide was coming for him. "If you want to look at it through rose-tinted lenses, sure," the boy replied to his bespectacled friend. "But honestly, I just don't want to ride the rest of this trip with a shouting match going on while I'm trying to shake off this stupid headache." "You okay?" Ari asked as she popped her head over Mina's seat. "I have some water back here if you need a drink." "Thanks, but I think my body's still trying to recover from using 5 different quirks for something like 20 hours a day for the last 5 days. He sighed. "That and danger sense in general just grates on my nerves." "Is there some way to turn that one off?" Ida asked him curiously. "Nope." Either Tenya's not paying close attention or Kurai's getting better at hiding his tells already. Mina thought as she watched her fiancé's knuckles whiten while showing a tired grin to his friend. She might have thought that the look in his eyes and the slight trembling in his arms could have been attributed to his memories of Switch, but her instincts told her that there was something else at play here. Something almost always is with the poor guy, she thought as she resolved to question him on the matter once they were in the privacy of one of their own rooms. Their current situation didn't allow much in the way of a truly private discussion, with Ida and Ari present, as well as any potential eavesdroppers, but she also doubted that Kurai was in any immediate danger, even from himself. She'd keep a closer eye on him for the rest of the ride, but she knew she could trust him far enough to keep his head among a small crowd like this one. Given all the anxiety, pain, and fear that he's been in proximity to during the rescues, it's not surprising he's feeling rough. Ari was now saying as she looked at her predecessor sympathetically. Apparently, it'll even react to negative emotions from people. Ow. Mina cringed as she started running her fingers through Kurai's hair again, which seemed to help him settle down a little. "Maybe stay away from Mr. Aizawa during finals week, then." "Pfft," Kurai snorted, honestly wanting to laugh out loud at the thought of trying to avoid their homeroom teacher at such a crucial time of their education, but quickly finding himself unable to muster the effort. Before he could try to force the laughter through, he felt Mina lean closer and whisper so that only he could hear her say, "My room, once we finish visiting everyone in the common space." Instead of reddening at the implications of what such an invitation could entail like he would have in the past, he merely closed his eyes, nodded, and leaned into her touch before murmuring, "That obvious? Just to me. I love you. I love you more." The smile that came to Kurai's face in that moment was drawn out with absolutely no effort from his tired face as he replied, "Lucky me, then." "Are we ready? To pitch the idea? Sure. Ready to implement? Not even close. I don't think I've ever worked this long on one baby. Hatsume muttered as she and Akurui looked down at the completed prototype that they had been collaborating together on for nearly 2 months now. And there's way more work to be done, so we gotta show this stuff to Mr. Powerloader and the principal so we can really get started. Her golden eyes shimmered with delight as she imagined all the different modifications she could make once they got the green light to move on to the final designs. Pump the brakes on that thought, Da Vinci. The boy grumbled as he picked up the components of their efforts. The two of them then started walking out of the lab, intent on heading toward Nezu's office. This thought was temporarily derailed when they ran into Asada, who was walking somewhere in a hurry. Whoa, sorry, he apologized when he nearly collided with Akurui. I didn't see you. Where's the fire? The younger boy asked the gray-skinned hero perspective. He knew Asada from his time helping Powerloader with the students in the support course lab. Just got a text from my friend Akabane that your brother and Kronoa are almost back on campus. The freshman grinned. We were planning to ask them about the ops, see if we could get some tips on rescue work while we can. Akurui winced slightly before he told the student, maybe wait on that one. If I know my brother, he's not going to want to talk about what he saw and did this past week. According to some of the articles that I've been reading, it was pretty rough out there. A lot of people didn't make it, and they would have been there for a lot of that stuff. Oh, right, Asada acknowledged, looking both startled and apologetic. I guess I should have thought of that. Akurui regarded him for a brief moment of silence before he decided to say, Tell you what, why don't I go with you and your friend to see them? I haven't seen Kurai since he left campus the other day, and he's more likely to open up if I'm the one steering the conversation. I'm not guaranteeing the answers you're looking for, but we can try. For real? Asada asked excitedly. Thanks, Hikari. Thank Akabane. The young genius shrugged. Her dad is the reason I still have a brother, so I'm inclined to show her a little favoritism. Hey, what about her baby? Hatsume demanded while Asada tried to figure out if he had just been deemed irrelevant by the other boy. We're supposed to show it to the principal. You can do it without me there, Akurui replied as he handed her the tech. We've each run it a dozen times, so you don't need me to hold your hand through the process. Just tell him that we're ready to start drafting the final designs. Show him sequences 3, 9, and 15. What about 17? If you really feel like it, he shrugged indifferently. I doubt he's got enough time to view all the programs that we planned out, so just stick to the more important basics for the presentation. Ha! Hatsume snorted as she pulled past a still confused Asada. By the time I finish wowing him with this baby, he'll be begging to see everything it can do. If the principal's office goes up in smoke, I will take no responsibility for it. Akurui shouted after her as she went around the corner into another hallway. With that, he spun on his heel and started walking in the opposite direction while saying, Come on then, Kurai won't want to visit for very long even if I am there, so we'd best get at the dorms before he is. Ashido has quite the arm on her. You're telling me? Kurai laughed as he rubbed his cheek in remembrance to the time he had crossed one line too many, having been more thoroughly informed of what took place between them during the first day of evacuations. At least she didn't threaten you with a follow-up. She did, actually. Ida nodded with a visible wince. I must say it was a strange experience. I've certainly been hit harder in the class by the likes of Kirishima, but something about her slap seemed to be far more damaging than it should have been. That may have been the pain of your bruised ego you were registering. The white-haired teen chuckled, to which his friend grinned a little sheepishly. Perhaps, but I have no intention of putting that theory to the test, he remarked. Once was enough, thank you. I can hear you guys. Mina pouted over her shoulder as they turned up the path to their dorm building. I said I was sorry. I know, Kurai said as he dropped the smile in favor of a more contrite expression. Sorry, I shouldn't be teasing you like that. It won't happen again. Mina's shoulders sagged as she stopped walking to look back at the two of them with a tired smile and the words, Nah, don't worry about it. I kind of deserved it after all. What say we all stop making apologies in circles and just get inside? Ida offered before Kurai could raise a counterpoint. I think we could all do some proper rest in our beds, as well as a warm meal and the company of our loved ones. Any objections to that plan? He said it with a completely straight face, but Mina felt a warm glow enter her heart as she recognized his words for what they were. Lead the way, she answered with a lighter smile as she allowed him to walk ahead of her and Eri, who was also smiling with more cheer than she might have expected, given the past 5 days. The rest of the bus ride had been fairly uneventful, though Kurai did make good on his promise to take photos with anyone who wanted, as well as giving out a few signatures. Eri joined him for a few of those moments, which seemed to excite the female demographic, seeing that there was a heroine who could stand shoulder to shoulder with a rising legend like the Guardian hero. Somewhat to the dismay of the other students on the bus, UA was actually the third stop, which meant that the four of them were able to get off while the transport was still mostly loaded. It also meant that they were getting back to their dorms while there was still plenty of light out, which told them that they would be able to get dinner before they completely crashed for the night. Part of Kurai hoped that Sato would be making the food, because he could definitely go for something sweet after 5 days of plain rations. Bakugo's cooking wouldn't be bad, he thought, though he'd never admit to such a thing out loud. How someone as volatile as the bombing hero had ever mastered the art of kitchen work was beyond him, but he had never known the boy to produce a bad dish. He was also hoping for a moment to speak to Ida about one of the people he'd found in the wreckage of a particularly devastating scene, as he hadn't felt the opportune moment to do so as of yet. He knew that he would need to talk to Mina about what he had seen, but he also knew that that wasn't going to be enough this time. He honestly didn't know what he was hoping to accomplish by telling his old friend about what he had uncovered, only that it seemed right for Ida to know the situation too. Why, though? He had to wonder to himself as they made their way past the hedges. It's not like we were friends with the guy. I know Tenya will remember him, but will he even care? Matter of fact, why the hell do I care? If I'm being honest, Dazo was probably going to end up as a... Kurai was snatched away from the spiraling thoughts when he walked in behind Eri and Ida to find a good portion of their class gathered together and welcoming them back. Someday I'm going to be on the opposite end of this kind of gathering. He chuckled before he was approached by Todoroki and Izuku. Hey guys, how are you? Shoto inquired while Mina left to talk to Yaoyorozu and Hagakure. Tired, but no major injuries, he replied as he moved to set his bag aside. They worked us pretty hard. We saw the news coverage, Izuku told him. I wish we could have been there to help. Yeah, that would have been cool, but crime doesn't stop because of freak weather, Kurai answered with some measure of philosophical resignation. There were moments when I wished that we could have had more people helping us, but they probably had as many people as they could effectively manage. Bring in too many people and heroes, people start stepping on each other's toes while they're trying to do the same job, and... he made a dismissive motion with his hand before finishing. We had enough people to do the job, and even if we wanted more heroes, there's still crime happening that needs to be stopped. Still, it's hard to feel as though stopping a crime is important when we see the results of a natural disaster like the one you were just at, Shoto muttered, even as he and Izuku shared a briefly exasperated look. Do I want to know? Their friend asked as he registered the unspoken message between them. I'll send you a video article later, Izuku promised him with something like a resigned air. I'd ask you not to laugh, but, well, that's a lesson in futility on its own. Our villain of the week was weird, Todoroki said bluntly, the look on his face telling the Guardian hero that was all he would be getting out of them for the time being. While all of that raises its own questions, I guess the takeaway here is that at least when there's a crime, someone can be held accountable for the deed that was done, whatever it might be. Kurai sighed as he started moving toward the kitchen, intent on getting some coffee. When something happened like that landslide, it's just... I don't know, there's only victims and no justice that can be given to them because there was no one responsible for it happening. Pausing for a half second, he then added, sorry, that sounded like I wanted more crime to happen instead of natural disasters, and that's awful. What am I... Don't worry, we understand what you're trying to say, Izuku assured him while Shoto nodded in agreement. Here, he'll need this before he starts making any real sense, a familiar voice said as a mug of strong-smelling coffee was placed in the white-haired teen's hands. Akuru winked at his brother before he added, That is Italian roast, courtesy of one Waishini. Kurai looked down at the mug as if it were a snake about to bite him before he asked, If I drink this, will she kill me for stealing her stuff? Hey! The albino girl snapped as she approached from around the gathering of Ida, Kirishima, Kaminari, and Shoji. See if I offer anything out of the goodness of my heart again if this is the kind of thanks you have to offer. No, I'm sorry, this is very nice, thank you. Kurai protested rapidly. I honestly thought he had stolen some of your stuff and was going to try and throw me under the bus once you realized it was gone. When have I ever? Shuken's copy of Xenoverse 10. You stole it because you wanted to play it before I could get it for my birthday. And when he realized it had gone missing, you stashed it in my bag because you knew everyone would believe that I was the one more likely to have taken it in the first place. Kurai deadpanned. Akuri paused for a moment before he asked, You knew about that? Of course I knew about that! Grumbling angrily to himself, Kurai then took a deep drink of the rich coffee, allowing the warm substance to chase away the chill that had resettled into his body following their walk from the front gates to the dorms. Letting out a long sigh, he then said, That's good stuff. Enjoy it, because I'm not handing it out every day, Weiss informed him. Will do, he grinned at her. Seriously, though, thank you. This is really good. Well, I'm glad to see that someone else around here appreciates what quality tastes like. The girl smiled in her turn. Welcome back, Hikari. Yang and Ruby will be home soon, but they insisted I give you a hug for the both of them upon your return. If it's all the same to you, I think I'll settle for passing along the sentiment. I swear that girl's gonna break me in half one of these times, Kurai muttered as he shuddered at the memory of Yang's bone-popping embraces. Try being me, Weiss commented dryly. I don't have your resilience, and she's been doing that to me for months longer than you. You have my sympathies. Kurai cringed before he took another drink from his mug. Man, this is really good. Guard that stash of yours more carefully from now on. Akuduri snickered to the girl on an aside. He'll come after it by any means necessary, and he knows how to pick locks. He would never resort to such crass methods to obtain the property of another. She sniffed as she turned her nose up at him and walked away. You just have to ruin my reputation, aren't you? Kurai asked his brother, who shrugged with a cheeky grin. She, of all your classmates, didn't believe that you would, which just tells me how much they must all trust you, he answered. You've got a good crew here. You have got to stop profiling people. Kurai sighed as he rolled his eyes upward. Profiling? Todoroki repeated as he and Izuku looked askance at the younger Hikari. Don't worry about it. Akadori grinned again. Turning more toward his brother, he then added, a couple of the students who were transferring to the hero course came over, by the way. They wanted to try and pick your brain for some costume ideas while you're here and not getting prepped for work. Isn't that more your department? Kurai inquired with a slight tilt to his head. You did a good job with my costumes, equipment, and replacement arm. Yeah, that's mostly because I know you so well, his brother shrugged. You were able to help Yaoyorozu and Midoriya redesign their equipment for better functionality without my input. You have field experience that I can study but not feel for myself, with the exception of Island, and I do not want a repeat of that. You guys are the ones crazy enough to run towards danger, so you'd have a better idea of what kind of designs would complement their powers in the high-stress situations. Kurai suppressed the urge to let out another long, drawn-out sigh by taking another deep draught of coffee. He was tired, sore, and hungry. He wanted to have a relaxed dinner with his friends and then sleep for 12 hours. He did not want to think about aesthetic designs that wouldn't impair the functionality for quirks he was barely familiar with. Who came to get my help? He finally asked. Akabane and Asada. Izuku answered for his brother. They're at the tables talking to Sero and Ojiro. All right, I'm on it, Kurai said as he rolled his neck and produced a sharp cracking sound. Akabane seems to be getting into this whole scene somewhat because of me, so I guess I ought to make sure she doesn't get hurt doing it. With that, he walked away, Izuku following close behind him. Shoto, however, remained behind to look at Akadori out of the corner of his eye and ask, Isn't Asada in the support course? Yep. Shouldn't he have a good idea of how costume designs work then? I said that he was in the support course, Akadori shrugged. I didn't say that he was especially good at it. It was nearing 4 in the afternoon when the rest of the students in their class had returned from their own work studies, and then received something of a surprise visit from Crow, Aizawa, and All Might. It was Sero who noticed them approaching, so he alerted the other occupants in the lounge room. I wonder what they're coming in for, he asked of no one in particular while the students decided to quiet down and await their teacher's presence, having long since learned that it was always best to be ready for Eraserhead in advance. If it's the three of them, nothing good, Kaminari joked, which caused some of them to laugh. Mina was about to join in, but then noticed that Akadori's face had become unusually severe, and that All Might was wearing a similar expression. A slight chill worked its way into her stomach as she had the thought, the last time he looked like this, Humorize was threatening global annihilation. She was brought out of this thought when she heard Kurai saying in an aside to Izuku, Is it just me, or has All Might been filling out lately? Yes, the Greenette answered with a confused look on his face. He's been able to keep a lot more food in lately, so he's finally getting back to a healthy weight. Wait, wasn't his stomach pretty much destroyed when he fought? Oh, right. Eri giggled, interrupting her predecessor. I guess no one told you that I fixed his organs. Okay, that makes sense. He grinned as the teachers reached the porch outside. In a lower tone, he then added, When did that happen? And does he have his quirk back? Pretty much right after you went to the hospital, and no, she answered with a swift shake of her head. I just reversed the state of his stomach to how it was before he fought All for One. He said that it would be better to leave the quirk in your hands, since we don't know if me reversing him all the way might do something to your version of the power. Fair enough, Kurai mused as the door was open and the three heroes walked in, prompting silence from the students as a whole. They only just had enough time to notice that Aizawa looked even more haggard than usual, which was saying something, before he said, Asada, Akabane, head back to your dorms. This is a discussion for my class alone. Okay, Asada said, looking nervously at the two instructors. Fortunately, All Might was quick to take pity on the boy by saying, You're not in trouble, young Asada, young Akabane. This is simply a talk for the licensed heroes in here. It's not personal. All right, Akabane said as she and her friend started moving toward the door. She glanced back at Sarah for a moment, who gave her an encouraging smile and a small wave of his hand. Mina definitely noticed this, but the looks that Aizawa and Akadori were wearing right now were enough to put a pin in her curiosity, at least for the moment. Once the two students were out the door, their homeroom teacher surprised them all by looking down at the floor and saying in a low tone, Everyone, I'm sorry. Sorry, Ida repeated, looking just as confused as everyone else felt. Mr. Aizawa, what could you possibly have to apologize for? While your methods have been unorthodox throughout the year, none of us can say that you have neglected your duties as a teacher, even when the League... This is about something far bigger than the League of Villains or even the Paranormal Liberation Front, All Might said sadly. I might even go so far as to say that what we have come to inform you of is a crime that even All for One himself would applaud. Chills shot down the spines of every student in the room, as they registered those words. To hear All Might himself, the symbol of peace, describe such an atrocity was enough to deeply unsettle even the more hardened heroes among them. Is there some new villainous organization at work? Yaoyorozu asked worriedly. Is there more to the coming battle than the PLF? You could say that. Akuru's declaration surprised everyone in the room, especially when he moved to stand alongside the teachers, his face looking like it had aged 5 years in as many seconds. Unfortunately, it seems like these villains in particular have been at work for some time, possibly before Tomura Shigaraki was even in the picture. Worse still, the problem with them is that they see themselves as the good guys. Would you guys stop beating around the bush and tell us what's going on already? Yang demanded. Trust me, kiddo, this isn't something that's going to be easy for any of you to accept, especially once you hear the full story. Crow told his niece, looking unusually sad and sober. In fact, the students were shocked to see that he didn't have a single flask on his person, and the usual reek of booze that followed him like a bad cologne was completely absent. Even so, well, keeping us in suspense isn't doing us any favors either. Kurai sighed. I'd take it as a personal favor if you'd let us know what's going on so I can sleep on it. Ari and I are dead tired as it is. In spite of their initial plans to get some shut-eye once they got home, they wound up staying downstairs with their friends in the Hero Course transfers for the last hour. Knowing you, you're not going to get much sleep after this, Akudori told his brother, looking at him with no small measure of pain in his eyes. I'm sorry, Kurai. I really am. I've done everything I can in an attempt to prevent what's about to happen, but for once, I don't have a contingency in place. If the students had been scared before, now they were utterly terrified. Even Todoroki looked supremely disturbed as they awaited their teacher's next words. The Heroes Public Safety Commission has reached a decision regarding the PLF, Aizawa told them. They've officially recognized them as a terrorist threat to our nation, and as such, intend to fight them as if they were an invading force from another country. Wait, isn't that a good thing? Kirishima asked with a frown. That means the army can get involved, right? That makes things easier on the heroes, doesn't it? Perhaps on paper, young Kirishima, All Might said with a slow shake of his head, a glimmer of tears in his dark eyes. But there's more to it than that. You see, oh my god. Kurai gasped, taking a full step back as he paled to such a degree that he resembled his own corpse. You don't... They're not. So you figured it out, Crow said as he regarded the boy with great sadness. Sorry, kid. What are they talking about? Ojiro demanded, starting to look annoyed with being left out of the loop, as did several of their classmates. Someone want to start talking straight here? If a group is recognized as an invading force in our country, the government has the authority to enlist the help of the heroes to basically act as shock troopers. Kurai explained in a strained voice. That includes heroes with provisional licenses. Shock troopers? Hagakure inquired, unfamiliar with the term. What are those? He's saying, Mina said, her own face paling as she recognized the term, that the government is going to use the heroes they've got as skilled human weapons. That we're not going to be out there to defeat the villains, we're going to be called into action to slaughter them. Kurai finished for her. It's not going to be a clash of ideologies anymore. It's a war of extermination. You could hear a feather drop in the room. All of them had faced death, certainly. A few had even been forced to kill their opponents as a means of self-defense, but this wasn't going to be as morally simple as forcing their enemies to submit to justice. This was them being authorized to take justice into their own hands at every step of the way, to play judge, jury, and executioner. No way, Ochako said with a slow shake of her head. They can't actually make us do that, can they? She looked to her teachers with pleading eyes, hoping that one of them might have some way out of this horrible revelation. We're minors, Ida gasped when no one would answer her. We couldn't be conscripted into the army, so how could they justify this kind of barbarism? You're licensed heroes, even if only on provision, Aizawa replied in a monotone. Minors or not, you've agreed to shoulder the responsibilities of a hero in Japan, whatever that may entail. No, Jiro growled, surprising her classmates with a sudden viciousness in her bearing. No, I won't agree to this. This is not why I became a hero. We became heroes to help people, not engage in a mass slaughter, Sato added hotly. This is wrong, Ruby said, looking horrified as her sister held her close. I'm all for killing villains who deserve it, Bakugo snapped angrily. But that ain't most of these PLF morons. They're just too stupid to think for themselves and they go along with whatever their boss thinks is cool. It's not enough a reason for them to get planted 6 feet under. We know that, Akudori shouted back at the group. We know that this is wrong. Trust me, I've done everything I can to think of to get around this, but it just isn't happening! What do you mean you tried to stop this? Kurai asked as he stepped toward the front of the group in order to look at his brother directly, who dropped his gaze away from the other boy. You knew about this? I was outmaneuvered, the younger Hikari groaned, though he kept his eyes pointed downward. What the hell does that? The commission did not come to this decision on their own, Crow explained shortly. They were coerced into voting this way by a villain we're still trying to identify. A villain? Ida repeated. But if a villain is responsible for this, then how can the government accept its application? Why haven't you revealed this to the proper authorities? Because there are lives at stake if we do, All Might told them tiredly. The person who did all of this somehow managed to figure out that Crow was spying on them, and then they contacted us. They informed us that if we told anyone other than your class what was really going on, they would kill the families of everyone from the HPSC. These are innocent civilians and even children who are being threatened. As such, our hands are tied until we can find whoever arranged all of this. Wait, the person responsible talked to you guys? Todoroki asked, looking surprised again. Why didn't Hikari track them using whatever signal or phone line they were using? Gee, why didn't I think... Of course I tried that! Akudori roared, surprising everyone again with how angry and helpless he looked. This person, whoever they are, outsmarted both Nezu and me. No. Their quirk didn't just let them outsmart us. He planned 50 fucking steps ahead of me! You guys get it yet? They are smarter than me! He was breathing hard now, almost hyperventilating as his body shook from the force of revealing his shameful failure to the people he'd come to consider an extended family through his brother. Someone smarter than Aki? Mina whispered. Is that even possible? Whoever this person is, they went so far as to completely erase every digital trace of their existence. Aizawa told them flatly. Hikari has done everything that he can to track them down on his end, while Branwen and Xiaolong have gone to ground to try and find them the old-fashioned way, but so far nothing. That, nearly as much as the thought that they were about to be made into super soldiers, was unnerving to the students. A new adversary, and one who could outsmart Akudori Hikari at that? How could they be expected to beat someone with those capabilities? What if we refuse to participate? The unexpected question came from Koda, who was petting his rabbit a little more firmly than he usually did, sweat beading across his brow. Uraraka is right. Nobody here signed up to be a hero because we wanted an excuse to kill people. Not even Bakugo. Hey! If this is what being a hero means, then I don't think I can do it, the animal tamer said with a slow shake of his head. I'm sorry, but this is too much, even for us, even after everything that we've been through. And now we come to why I'm truly sorry to tell you about this, Aizawa murmured, burying his face almost completely in his scarf. If you choose to walk away from this, I won't blame you. But the person responsible for all of this, Umbra. They said that if any of you back out, they'll kill the family of the commission members. All of them. The hell? Bakugo snarled, a couple of explosions going off in his hands from sheer reflex, while several of his schoolmates looked positively sick at the news. What kind of dick move is that? Why is he targeting us specifically? Does All for One have some backup minion after all this? The person that claims that they are following their own agenda. All Might answered it with another shake of his head, and apparently that agenda focuses on causing young Hikari to suffer as much as possible. Wait, which one? Ojiro asked, looking worriedly between the two brothers. Whoever this guy is, he seems to have it out for Kurai. Akudori answered shakily, but he said that he was going to take his anger out on me, to make the both of us suffer. It's also why they're roping the rest of your class into this. He's using all of you to get at us too. A grudge against me, Kurai mumbled hoarsely. I've never dealt with anyone who had an intelligence quirk. Our working theory is that whoever this is has some connection to one of the villains that young Hikari has put away, All Might explained. We've been looking into members of the Hasaikai and their associates, as well as 9 and his thugs' families, but so far we've found nothing promising. We've thought about looking into the leadership of Humorize, but whoever's been doing this would have had to start their work long before you defeated them, Crow added. There's one group you're missing, Kurai suddenly said, his gaze turning sharp as he shifted his gaze to look at the older man. The Nomu. Wait, do you think that the relative of a person that became a Nomu could be doing this? All Might asked, looking surprised as he did. Not just any Nomu, Kurai said with a slow shake of his head. I've only ever fought 2, and I didn't defeat that first one. The Shadow Nomu. That's our lead. I don't follow, Aizawa said with a frown. Son of a bitch! Akudori suddenly screamed, making everyone in the room flinch again. How in the every hell did I miss that? Miss what? Ida asked, worry for the younger boy only increasing as he clutched at his hair hard enough to rip some of the follicles out of their roots. Umbra! He snarled as he slammed his fist into the wall behind him. It's in the damn name! Umbra, like my name, can be translated as dark or shadow. Kurai explained over his shoulder, his voice sounding more composed than his brother's, though he was still pale and shaking. This guy was arrogant enough to challenge Akudori and Nezu directly. That kind of arrogance doesn't come and go, so I'd be willing to bet that he's taunting us through his given moniker, an alternate version of my name, with it. And the media took to calling the monster that Kurai took out in Fukuoka the Shadow Nomu. Akudori growled, causing the room's attention to shift back to them. If this is some kind of macabre reference to that thing, the issue here is that you obliterated the Nomu in question down to the last atom. There's nothing in the way of forensics to help us figure out who it used to be before it was turned into a monster. There was a slight pause before he slowly said, Unless, Aizawa prompted, looking a little impatient himself. All for one's doctor, the boy said as he looked up at the erasure hero with a faint glimmer of hope in his eyes. According to Aries' account of the future, the guy is almost painfully meticulous in his methods and record keeping. If we can find him and get a hold of his research, we can find out everything that he knew about that Shadow Nomu. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Aizawa cautioned him. You're talking about a possible lead based on nothing more than a name that could have been chosen on nothing more than a whim. Might even be that Umbra chose that name to throw you off his trail. But it makes sense, Izuku now said, bringing everyone's attention to him. He had his chin in his hand as he started to mutter. This Umbra villain is clearly out to hurt Kurai and us by extension, but if the League turned their friend into a relative into a Nomu, they'd have a bone to pick with them too. If they set up the battle so that the heroes were expected to kill Japan's biggest threats, it would effectively mean taking out the people responsible for Nomu being created in the first place and psychologically torturing us all without getting their own hands dirty. How does any of that help us get out of becoming human weapons? Blake suddenly shouted, startling everyone else again. By the time you guys might be able to track Umbra down, the war will have already happened, won't it? We'll have been pressed into action and the damage will be done. She was shaking and tears were already leaking from her eyes, speaking to something more than just their present circumstances. We'll all be murderers. Those words, the ones that told them in no uncertain terms what was about to happen in just a few weeks, finally caused the dam to break. Most of the girls collapsed into tears, and a few of the boys weren't far behind them, but every single one of them looked either shell-shocked or sick to their stomachs. And you could blame them. If they stayed, they would inevitably be caught up in a situation where they would be forced to deal death and destruction on massive levels. They had all thoroughly explored the extent of their powers. They knew what such abilities could do to people if they didn't hold back. On the other hand, if they backed out as conscientious objectors, the blood of innocent families would be on their hands. All because I did this, Kurai whispered as he looked down at his hands. Everyone is in this mess because of me and what I've done. Don't go there. Akudori warned him as he grabbed his brother by his shirt and leveled an angry glare on him. Don't you dare go there. Other than your little freak out after coming back to life, you've done everything that we could expect from a good hero. This is on Umbra and them alone. If you hadn't done what you've done, there would be a lot of people dead in Japan, and even the rest of the world. You saved so many lives we couldn't even count the number. Umbra is trying to make you forget that fact. Don't let them succeed. They're targeting everyone here because they hate me, or at least something that I did. Kurai replied with a slow shake of his head. I may not be responsible for the war that's about to happen, but I am responsible for this. With the last word, he swung his arm behind him to indicate the 20-odd people who were each trying to come to grips with the fate they had been enslaved to. I can see this is one of the things where you and I are not going to agree no matter how I argue. Akudori sighed heavily. But I'm not giving up. I'm going to find the son of a bitch, and when I do, I'm going to make him pay for all of his actions. And I know that Nezu is going to make sure that when this is all over, the HPSC is going to be held accountable for war crimes against you guys. I know it's not going to be much comfort now or later, but we will avenge this act. Kurai stared at his brother for a silent moment before he said, You're right. That doesn't make me feel any better. All the same. He tightened his fist as black lightning reflexively flickered across his body as he growled ominously. Do it. Make this guy regret every breath he's ever taken. I'll make sure to save you a piece of the action, Akudori said, but he was a little surprised when his brother immediately shook his head in the negative. The only person I need to kill is Shigaraki, and that's more the wish of the vestiges than my own, he explained. I'm the wielder of One for All, so that's my problem to handle, and everyone here knows that. But if I were to have Umbra within arm's reach, I don't think I'd ever be the same person after that. I know that I'd become something that none of the people I love would even recognize. So find him, take him down, and keep him far away from me. Akudori looked conflicted for a moment, but then nodded somberly. All right, he promised his brother. You've got your target, I've got mine. As long as you give Shigaraki 1 or 2 shots from me, I'll be sure to give Umbra what he deserves. Deal. Kurai said firmly before the two of them grasped each other's forearms to seal the pact between them.
Set the station, let the rage consume you, and like a wildfire burning through you. Built in a coffin from confetti and confessions. Maybe there will be a lesson in the rubble when it's through. Buried in metal and a million memories. The temperature is rising to 1,000 degrees. I never ever learned to let go of the pain. I'll make it all burn till nothing remains.
How do we feel about this one?
All right. Well, we open with a bus ride, right?
Yep. We don't open up. We open up with them trying to get to the bus, and the yellow journalists are there.
That's right.
Yep, and like Kurai is just so dead tired that he is straight up being tempted to just blast them all, so he can go to the bus and get some sleep.
But we got some wing people. We're good.
Yes.
Give the kids some space.
Yep.
Let them go home.
I enjoyed getting to have the heroes come in clutch for him and Eri, because they definitely needed that at that point.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. What was I gonna say? I debated on whether or not having Rocklock be there, but I was like, nah. You know what? I included him in the earlier chapter, and like clearly he's like we see in the later episodes of the show that he is remorseful for the way that he treated Deku and Lemillion when they first came into the play. And he's like, nah, these guys are heroes just as much as any of us. So he's like, if they need help, we got to help them. Mm-hmm. So I enjoyed getting to explore that part of his character.
Then we have the typical, like, you know, fans and not so fans on the bus that we're having to deal with.
Yeah, what did you think of that bit where it's like there's that girl who like is a fan of his, but he's just like so terrified of her for a second that he like forgets where he is.
Yeah, so I mean it makes the whole situation is just like one of those unfortunate social interactions where there's a lot of misunderstandings happening all at once.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and of course, unfortunately, her friend was already a kind of a hater.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there's always going to be haters, but
which he understands pretty well.
Yeah. And unfortunately though, you know, when you're in the spotlight, you are you're living in a fishbowl, and so every little move you make, every little facial expression is going to be interpreted and misinterpreted. And so of course this girl's like, oh yeah, clearly he doesn't care, he's just a jerk like all the rest of these crazy, like, you know, upper
A-listers.
level pros. Yeah. So she, you know, but I appreciate how he defended her from the others, even though she was being a total jerk. Yeah. And that just shows his character.
That shows that shows like what being a hero is for him, because it's like it's not selective for him. Mm-hmm. She's not a villain. She hasn't done anything to break the law, so she doesn't deserve what's being thrown at her.
Yes, literally.
Yeah. And I very specifically made a point of not having her thank him.
Yeah, because there are people who just don't care. They're not. She'll see it as, oh, Mr. Do Good. He's trying to
recover some popularity points.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I wanted to avoid the trope of like being touched by the selfless act of the hero, because like more often than not that doesn't happen in real life.
Oh yeah.
And I'm trying to flesh out, how do I put this? Not even necessarily the citizenship of the world of My Hero Academia. I wanted to explore a little bit more like the mid-level heroes and like the sidekicks that are kind of up and coming.
Yeah.
So like the ones that are never going to be like, you know, oh, we reserve golden prime time for this guy's interview, but like the ones that do good work. Like, and you know, this girl, whoever she is, you know, she's not going to be a bad hero. She's just kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
Who's a little bit, or she's kind of bitter.
She's not even a jerk. Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think she's even necessarily a jerk. She's probably just bitter.
Yeah. And being bitter makes you a jerk.
Yeah.
Or it can make you a jerk pretty easily.
But You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I wanted to, like after all the craziness that's been going on, I felt like it was time to like kind of have, how do I put this? I'm having a hard time putting my words together today. Like we've had all these heroes and volunteer workers who were working with him who couldn't thank him fast enough, often enough for everything that him and Aerie were doing. So we saw like what it looks like when they've got, this level of awe directed them, and like, if not that, like this level of respect for what they can do. Mm-hmm. And now we kind of come back, we're coming down from the clouds back among the others who there are plenty there that are like, wow, that's the Guardian hero. It's so cool. Like, wow, he's all right. He's our own age. And they kind of like get to see a little bit of humanity from him. It's like, man, he must have been working really hard if he's that tired. But among that demographic, there would have to be people who A, don't care, or B, just don't like him because I think he's a showboater.
Yep, absolutely.
Which is like kind of where Monoma falls under, I feel like. He's just took it to a really unhealthy extreme.
Yeah.
So it was, I don't know, did you feel like the bus ride dragged?
No.
No? Because that was what I was afraid of.
No, I for me at least, I think it's different reading and listening, but me as an audio chapter person, it was just enough time, and it was over before it got too slow for me. So
okay, yeah.
I think it was an important interaction.
Yeah, and again, it kind of shows where where Kurai's headspace is, and where his friends' headspaces are at. Mina's all like, her hackles are up, she's all ready to go throw hands, and he's the one who has to kind of tell her, he's like, come on, chill out. He's like, chill out.
He's a big boy, he can watch out for himself.
Yep.
But it's easy, when you're feeling protected. Somebody you love is.
Oh, I've seen you get all riled up whenever someone's bad talking me, and I'm just kind of like, eh.
And it's funny because I'm naturally like,
you're the more passive one, naturally.
But growing up, there's been times where like something happens with one of my brothers, or something happens with somebody I'm close to, and I think it's more been my brothers and you where that's happened, because the connection's a little closer, where that mama bear comes out, and I'm just like, no, I'm not having this right now, I can't. And so you've definitely had to calm me down on a few occasions.
Like, it's funny though, because like we're talking about how Kurai was the one who calmed her down, but I really had a good chuckle to myself where he hears those two boys talking about Aerie, and he's just like ready to go into kill mode. Yes. He's like on reflex, and he's just like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Why am I getting like this? And he's like having to actively fight his quirk to stay down.
At the end of the series, we just need to flash forward to everyone as like pro heroes, and little Aerie like a first year going to school, and like all her big brothers and sisters who are heroes are visiting. It's like, oh my gosh,
like all
down.
Oh, are you kidding? Yajiro's is probably gonna be one of the teachers there. Are you kidding me?
Oh, absolutely.
I'm like, if not her, Ida's gonna be a teacher there.
At some point.
At some point. I don't know how long it'll be for, but I feel like Ida has to end up being a UA teacher at some point.
I love it. I love it so much.
Oh man, yeah, there's me trying to elicit the full spectrum of emotions from a chapter, and that was kind of my bit where I'm like, I'm gonna push it a little bit for the humor.
That being said, now that we're getting home,
we had that scene where Akuduri and Hatsume, we almost got to look at what their secret project is, but not quite. Not quite yet. It's gonna be good. I'm looking for. I think it's next chapter, actually. I think it's next chapter that we're gonna reveal what it is that they've been working on.
Yeah.
But
then we have a couple of kiddos asking Akurui if they can go ask for tips.
Yeah. So a quick reminder in case because again, you don't want to do like the anime recap where it's like, oh yeah, this person did this, this, and this. Akurui just kind of mentions in passing that Akabane's dad is the reason that he still has a brother. So just in case it slipped anybody, Dr. Akabane was the guy that operated on Kurai after he lost his arm
Yeah.
and helped save his life.
Yeah.
And his daughter is in the UA General Studies, but she will be moving into the Hero Course starting with their second year. And then Asada is a friend of hers who is also moving into the Hero Course. So Akadori is kind of like, well, I love, one of the things I love about Akadori is that he's not shy about playing favorites.
Not at all.
He's literally like, yeah, I don't care about you, but because her dad saved his life, I'll do you guys a solid.
Also, I'm just being kind of nosy myself, and I want to see what's going on with him. Let's be real. There's a little bit of that too.
Yeah, a little bit. What'd you think of the homecoming scene where they're all like they're all coming back into the door and everybody's looking for them, and Todoroki and Deku are kind of like, our week was stupid. If you don't know what that's about,
oh yes.
If you don't know what that's about, look at the season 5 OVA. Look at
Smiley.
Yes, the season 5 OVA where they're training with Endeavor. It was a really dumb episode, but I had such a good time watching it.
So much gold. I love it.
Yeah.
It was the most filler episode-y I think My Hero has ever gotten.
Yeah.
But Mr. Smiley,
it was so funny.
So that's what they were dealing with while everybody.
I was trying to figure out. I was like, when would this be taking place? As I was sitting down planning out this arc, I was like, when is this taking place? Like, what can I tie? What from the main show can I tie into that would explain when this happens? And then I was like, Mr. Smiley.
Love it. I love it so much.
It's such a dumb episode.
It really is.
I'm like, I feel like My Hero Academia filler works because it just doesn't happen very often, and when it does, it's gold.
Laugh, so I'm about it.
What, Bakugo?
Yes.
Oh yeah, because he gets. I thought, honestly, once they explained what the quirk was, I was like, okay, they're gonna hit everybody but Endeavor because there's just no way that. And then they got Endeavor, and I'm just losing my mind laughing because it's so dumb.
We need to watch that again. I love that episode.
There's just that scene where they're all seated in the lounge, with the dark cloud hanging out because they're all just ashamed of themselves. I'm
pretty sure I laughed until I was crying for that one.
It was such a dumb episode.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
Sorry. Anyways. Just real quick, I love that parting comment that Akadori has for Hatsume, where he's just like, if the principal's office catches on fire, it's not my fault. Oh man. So they get in, they start talking to their friends. We have Weiss being very nice to Kurai, which is, again, a lot of this last few chapters is kind of a mark on where these characters are as opposed to where they started or where they have been. Because
you just see change with everybody.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember or not, but Weiss absolutely hated Kurai when they first met.
I mean, she's a tsundere, but
not only that, he accidentally he kind of more or less implied that her father was a crook, and she didn't take kindly to that, which we now know is she knows he's a crook, but she doesn't like other people knowing that or calling her out on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they got off to a rough start, but now she's she's now making sure that he's got something that he'll enjoy when he gets home. That's unexpectedly nice for her. And I felt at this point in the story with everything that they've been through together, it was about time for her to kind of start expressing that kind of sentimentality, because she was a part of the team where they all went and took down Humorize together. So that by proxy draws them a little closer together, even if they hadn't gotten along beforehand. Let's see. So we got Akadori and Kurai doing their thing. We got more of that Full Metal Alchemist sibling vibe going on, which I love. I love getting to write those scenes. I love getting to hear what people think of that. I love watching your reaction to their dynamic.
It's so fun.
It's so fun. It's just fun.
That being said,
the
other shoe drops.
And then, yep. So, yeah, I warned that there was going to be some pretty intense language in this one. That is probably the only time That's certainly the only time up to now that I've ever dropped an uncensored F-bomb in a story. And it may honestly be the only time that I do it going forward. Because, like, I want... Like, so here's how it was growing. So for me growing up, I wasn't allowed to use bad words. As I got older, my mother explained to me, she's like, if you're gonna use swear words, essentially, she was like, don't use them all the time, because if you just repeat a word time and time again, it loses its impact. She was like, so if you need to use one, use it sparingly, so that when you do, and people know that you don't use that kind of language very often, when you do, it's really gonna stand out to people. So with all that in mind, that's why I chose to have Akurui be the one to drop this, because he is just that stressed out and feeling that much pressure.
Yeah.
Like they're at the point where him and Kurai are like just scrambling for straws for any clue that they can think of for this Umbra person, to the point where Aizawa has to step in and be like, you guys are kind of going on a rabbit trail here off of something that probably was chosen just to throw you off, if it even was. And they're like, but they're just so desperate for something to get them out of this situation.
And I think we'll get some more on like Akurui and what his thought processes are right now in the coming chapters.
Yeah.
But I think also, like, you know, for me personally, I would rather you don't. But that being said,
I went back and forth on this one.
I understand why you did, and I think the upcoming chapters will definitely inform why, because we're going to start understanding a little bit more what's going on inside of his head right now, when he's having this moment.
Yeah.
So. Yeah,
he is. Yeah, this is probably the most... No, not probably. This is the most stressed that Akurui has ever been in his life. Like, and again, like, and even going off of like the chapter where Umbra first introduced himself, you can kind of already almost validate this, because, like Akurui is used to being in control of stuff. Like, even when he was in a wheelchair, he's used to being able to keep, he's able to keep track of all the variables. He's like, how do I work this situation so that it turns out in our favor? Yeah. The variables have all been taken from him, if not turned against him entirely.
And he knows more than anybody right now.
Yeah, he is not used to feeling helpless.
Yeah.
And, like, this is a very new... Like, even when he was in the wheelchair, again, like, he never really felt helpless completely. Like, he had those moments of doubt that he expressed to Kurai, but this is the first time I'm gonna say that Akurui has, like, really fallen into despair. Like, this is probably the lowest point that Akurui has ever hit. It's
understandable, because I mean, he and the others are being leveraged and blackmailed at this point.
Well, it's not just that he's being blackmailed, it's that he hates that his brother's friends, and now his friends, are the ones who are going to suffer in being used against the two of them. Yeah. It's like it is a no-win scenario for them. It's like their only lead that they can think of, they won't be able to even pursue it until after they've defeated the Paranormal Liberation Front. Yep. So it's like he's really between a rock and a hard place. So yeah, this was like, this is where I really wanted crap to hit the fan for Akurui. Yeah. And I think I accomplished that pretty well. I'll leave that to you guys to tell me whether or not I did do a good job here. That said, what did you what did you make of everybody's reactions to all this?
I think it made sense because there were certain people who were like, excuse me, I'm here to save people. I'm not here to kill people.
I'm not here to kill people.
Like, I'm here to prevent people from being killed. That's, it's and so it's just this impossible situation.
You have different, like, honestly, like, Kurai, for Kurai, like, being told to kill the villains is not so much a problem for him as it is everybody else being told that they have to do it. Like, that's the problem for him. That's why he's freaking out. Also that him and his brother are being targeted by this strange new entity that they're just like, where the heck did this come from? Yeah. But yeah, for some of them, for some, like, and even Bakugo, he's like, look, there's some, he doesn't say it as much, but he's like, yeah, there's some people out there who deserve to get killed, but it's like we're really gonna go out and kill like thousands of people because their boss gave them a stupid idea.
Yeah.
Like, that's where he's at on this. And then, there's even, like, there's a few of them in their class that have already killed people. Kurai killed 9, or Kurai and Deku killed 9. Team Ruby killed the Chimera villain. So there is a handful of them who have already been put in this situation. So how they handle it, so you can already see, like, there's gonna be different approaches to this.
Yes.
Because, like, they have different starting dispositions. Some of them are going to be like, well, orders are orders.
Yeah, but it's
others
the
are going to be
principle
like,
of the thing
yeah.
of
But there are certainly
them
those who are
being
like,
turned into
no.
child soldiers.
Yeah, they are being turned into child soldiers. That's not okay. But they're also being leveraged against because they're like, well, either we become child soldiers or other children are just going to go boom.
Yeah.
Like, then they have nothing to do with it. They have, like, those children, they have no chance of getting out of this. Like even if they haven't put it into words yet, I think they already understand on some level. It's like we're being told to go out and kill, but at least we have a chance at surviving it. Mm-hmm. Whereas these other people who are being held hostage unknowingly, they have no chance.
Exactly.
So, what's it going to be? Are they going to go out and protest the villains' lives as being worth preserving unto the death of the innocents, or are they going to knuckle down and do what they can to keep the innocent people safe? Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's not a great situation to be in. It is a moral dilemma, like, and it's not one that's meant to be easily solved. Because like, to a lot of them, it's like, the value of a human life is the value of a human life. It doesn't matter if it's an innocent person or a villain. But for others, it's a little more cut and dry.
Yeah.
So we'll just kind of have to wait and see what everybody else goes with going forward. So,
were there any other takeaways you wanted to go over before we close?
I'm trying to think of them, but
I think that's about the gist of it.
That's about the gist of it. I think, like, there's a couple small things I could go over. Like, Crow shows up, like, he's not, like, he doesn't even smell like he's got booze. Mm-hmm. Which, which should tell you pretty immediately. It's like, okay, this is bad.
Yeah.
Or at very least, this is really serious. But yeah, it was really challenging and strange to me to write Akururi in this panic. Because like I said, like, he's not used to feeling that, and I'm not used to presenting him this way.
Yeah.
Like, even when he was, like, not killing himself, but, like, pretty darn near to it when he overhyped his quirk on Island, he was still in control of things.
Yeah.
Or at least he was in control of himself and the situation around him. Like, he was able to keep account of the variables. He was able to figure out, even when things turn south, okay, how do we turn this to
completely at a loss at this point.
Yes. This entity has got him by the throat, and he does not know how to get out of it. Mm-hmm. So we'll leave you guys to sit with that. Be back in a month. This next chapter we'll pick up immediately after this one. Mm-hmm. Start dealing with the aftermath and kind of the beginnings of, like, the students being like, how do we process this? And maybe we'll see what Akudori and Hatsume have been cooking up. When that does happen, it's gonna be good. I don't know if I can say fun, given everything that's going on and is about to go on.
But we all love our Akudori Hatsume moments.
Oh yeah,
they're great.
Yeah. They're great. Well, as always, guys, thank you so much for listening to us. Thank you for sticking with this story for 108 entries now. That's insane to me that A, I've been able to write this for this long, B, that you guys are still here. But thank you so much for lending us your support, and thank you for sending in the questions and the reviews. I really enjoy responding to those. They're one of, if not my favorite part of this podcast. So we'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a Plus Ultra month or a Plus Ultra couple of weeks if we see you for the next Pokemon Warpath podcast.
Bye.